Hi everybody. I am going to be reading the book directly from the book of Hi everybody. I am going to be reading the book directly from the book of Hi everybody. I am going to be reading the book directly from the book of Hi everybody. And yeah, the book is the steam locomotive. Its oper its operation, its theory, its operation, and economics with a side comparison of the diesel electric locomotive, the diesel, the first diesel electric locomotive. Yeah, so I'm going to be reading for this. I'm going to be reading the forward, and I'm going to be reading the chapters 1 and 2. Enjoy. The steam locomotive. Its theory, operation, and economics, including comparisons with diesel-electric locomotives, by Ralph P. Johnson, M.E., the Chief Engineer of the Baldwin Locomotive Works. This is the foreword. Alright. This book has been written with the definite idea of presenting in convenient form certain fundamental facts regarding locomotive theory and operation. The need for such a book has often been brought home to the author during trips to foreign countries where he has been questioned on American practices and methods. It has also fallen to his lot as service engineer for a locomotive builder to answer similar questions from domestic customers. Information on these practices is available in the technical press, but requires time to unearth it and judgment in using it. Further, much of this literature assumes an intimate understanding of formulas and fundamentals on the part of the reader which many do not possess. The author, having made numerous researches of this type, feels that the information so gathered might save others a similar effort if brought together in book form. That with too much history and has therefore tried to treat each subject in a concise manner so that the reading of any one chapter would give a clear idea of the present status of that subject. An effort has been made to explain the derivation of formulas, and their use is explained by examples so that anyone may make similar computations. In compiling such a handbook as this, the author is cognizant of the danger of personal bias and has striven to pick neutral authorities and to present proof based on authentic experiments and investigations. Where subjects are controversial, both sides are presented, but where a choice had to be made, the author has used his own opinion. No claim to originality is made by the author for any of the material in this book, and an effort has been made to give credit, both in text and bibliography. I'm terrible, sorry. Bibliography to those whose writings on the various subjects have been used. The author takes this opportunity to express his indebtedness to all those who have assisted in this work, in particular his business associates, Messrs. C.F. Cross, E.J. Harley, Jr., and the late W.H. Winter OWD, yeah. R.P. Johnson, Philadelphia, PA, June 1st, 1942. There's a foreword to the second edition, but we don't need to necessarily get into that. It is basically saying that he has made corrections where he felt were needed. The second edition of the Steam Locomotive includes 3 new chapters discussing respectively steam, utilization, distribution of locomotive weight, and braking. It is felt that these subjects deserve more comprehensive treatment than was given them in the first edition. The original text has also been revised where such revisions seemed desirable, and errors have been corrected. There is an ample evidence that the book is proving of value to many at home and also abroad who are concerned with the design and operation of the locomotive. The first edition was exhausted in a year and this edition is now offered to meet a continuing demand. Alright, so I did read the second foreword. I'm going to be reading the chapters 1 and 2 in this live stream. If you want to hear it, obviously stick around. If you don't, that's up to you. But kudos to me for my bravery. Yeah. So we're going to do, chapters 1 and 2. Chapters 1 is locomotive classification, as in the wheel arrangement. Those who know the white system know exactly what I'm talking about. This will just go over that this will go over that. And this is actually a somewhat of a short chapter, but here we go, okay? Let me take a quick swig, and we will be getting on our way. Alrighty. Alright. So we're going to do the locomotive classification, chapter 1 right now, and we're going to hopefully read chapter 2, which is on the fuels that the steam locomotive uses. Again, this is by the chief engineer, who pretty much ran the BALDWIN Locomotive Works during its final years. Ralph P. Johnson. In the United States, steam locomotives are usually classified according with the arrangement of their wheels, and various systems have been devised for different types. The most typical of these is the so-called white system, that is white, W-H-Y-T-E, in which a series of numerals indicate the number of wheels in the front truck, driving wheel group, and rear truck retrospectively. Thus, a 482 type locomotive is having a four-wheeled front truck, 4 pairs of coupled driving wheels, and 2-wheeled rear truck. If no truck wheels are employed, ciphers are used to indicate the fact. Thus, a 060 indicates a switching locomotive with 3 pairs of coupled driving wheels and has neither front nor rear trucks. If the locomotive is of the double driver group type, 2 numerals are used to represent the 2 groups of driving wheels. Thus, A 2884 is a locomotive having two-wheeled front truck, 4 pairs of coupled driving wheels in each group, and a 4-wheeled rear truck. Articulated locomotives, as used in the United States, irrespective of wheel arrangement, are generally known as Malays. From Anatole Mallet, a French engineer who originated and articulated design in 1884 with the boiler rigidly attached to the rear engine frames. Well, Mallet's original design employed compound cylinders. The majority of the articulated locomotives built in the United States in the last 10 years have single expansion cylinders. They are preferably described as single expansion articulated locomotives, given the white WHYTE symbol to designate the wheel arrangement. Table 1 on the following page shows the various wheel arrangements and their white symbols, together with the names that have become commonly used for certain types. The 484, although many are in service, has no generally adopted type name. That is not true. They are known as Northerns. 484. We all know them as, well, the Queen of Steam. 611. There is the Daylight. That is, Southern Pacific number 4449. At least I named 2. So there is a chapter. There is a list in this book. Maybe sometime I'll put it up. But for right now, I'm just going to go back to reading. And we are already on chapter 2. Because what was left of chapter 1 was just the table showing the locomotives, the locomotive's wheel arrangements. So here we are going to chapter 2, locomotive fuels. We all know them as oil, coal, wood, Okay, here we go. Chapter 2, Locomotive Fuels. Amounts used, coal, classification, heating value, storage, oil, heating value, use of oil in locomotives, comparison of coal and oil as fuel. The Interstate Commerce Commission reports showed that about 83% of all locomotive power is derived from coal. Of all the fuel used in locomotives in 1941, 64.5% were used in freight service. 21.1% were used in passenger service. 14.2% were used in switching service, and 1.2% were used in all other services. The amount of fuel used in the United States by Class 1 railroads moving 1,000 tons of equipment and freight the distance of 1 mile has been reduced from 172 pounds in 1920 to 111 pounds in 1942. Keep in mind that is when this book was made. This is about coal. Coal is a dark brown or black mineral substance. All coals are formed from vegetable growth, fossilized by moisture, heat, pressure, and time, and can be individually distinguished by their physical structure as well as by their chemical peculiarities. A broad classification includes wood fiber, which is the lowest of the group, followed in order by peat, lignite, bituminous coal, semi-bituminous, semi-anthracite, anthracite coal, and graphite. Starting from the lowest in the group, each succeeding rarity of coal is distinguished by an increase in carbon and a decrease in oxygen. The hydrogen remains particularly consistent for the lower part of the group, but decreases rapidly in the higher part. In describing coal, Kent gives the empirical but convenient classification below. Anthracite. All coal with less than 7.5 anthracite. All coal with less than 7.5 volatile matter combustible. Semi-anthracite. All coal with 7.5 to 12.5 volatile matter incombustible. Semi-bituminous. All coal with 12.5 to 25% volatile or volatile. Again, I'm terrible. I'm sorry. Yeah, so semi-bituminous has the same as I had just mentioned, but with 12.5 to 25% volatile matter incombustible. Bituminous is all coal with 25 to 50% volatile matter incombustible. Lignite, all coal with 50% or more volatile matter incombustible. In measuring heating value, The unit employed is the British thermal unit, BTU, which is the amount of heat required to raise temperature of 1 pound of water to the, which is the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 pound of water 1 degree Fahrenheit. The approximate heating values for the various grades are given below. Sometime I'll probably put that up, but for right now, let's just stick to the reading. The heating values given above show the heat units available for evaporation if the coal is burned with 100% efficiency and all the heat produced is utilized. In practices, it is found that the locomotive boiler operates at efficiencies varying upon approximately 80% for very low rates of combustion to 40% for the highest rates. The evaporation in pounds of water per pound of fuel from and at 212 degrees Fahrenheit for different grades of coal at various efficiencies is given in the following table. Again, sometime maybe I'll put that up. Not right now, I'm going to just focus on the reading. One pound of average bituminous coal possesses as much heating value as 1/4 pounds of average dry wood. In burning coal, first the moisture is driven off, next the volatile matter, and then the remaining fixed carbon ignites, leaving a, and there is a table on the next page, so again, maybe I will sometime, but not right now. Residue of ash. These four constituents of coal are ordinarily determined by the proximate analysis, which gives information sufficient for all practical purposes. The chemical elements are accurately determined by the ultimate analysis, which gives the percentage of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, and ash. The percentage of oxygen is taken as the difference between 100 and the sum of the other 5 constituents, because there is no simple direct method of determining it. The approximate composition and calorific value of typical U.S. coals are shown in Table 2. Approximate weights of the different commercial sizes of coals are shown in Table 3. There's Yeah, sometime I'll have to sometime I'll have to do that. Wow, somebody's watching. Uh, the heat, the heat value of coal is represented by the heat units liberated by perfect combustion, expressed in British thermal units per pound of fuel. This can be approximated from either the proximate or ultimate analysis. From its proximate analysis, the BTU value of 1 pound of coal is given to be LUCKE as, and it shows a big thing, a big yeah, a big it's written out in like a formula thing. So yeah, it is BTU per pound equals 14,544 C plus 27,000 V, with another problem beneath that, in which C and V are the fractional weights of fixed carbon and volatile respectively in the coal. From its ultimate analysis, the BTU value of coal can be approximated by the long formulas, which are that, in which the C is carbon, H is hydrogen, O is oxygen, and S is sulfur, expressed in the fractional part of 1 pound of coal, is more direct and accurate method of determining the heat value of coal by a fuel calorimeter of the bomb type, bomb in quotations. A sample of coal was burned in the bomb or combustion chamber, which is immersed in water. The heat of combustion transmitted to the water raises the temperature, and from this rise the heat value of the coal is calculated. Deterioration in storage. Coal undergoes a change in heat value and weight due to weathering when stored in the open, indoors, or underwater. Usually the volume and sometimes the weight is increased. Coal stored under fresh salt may retain from 2 to 12% moisture, but its heat value is practically unchanged. Exposure of coal to the air, either in the open or under cover, reduces its heat value. The quantity of carbon and disposable hydrogen is diminished while the quantity of oxygen and the indisposable hydrogen is increased. Extensive experiments by S. W. Parr on Illinois coal showed that the most rapid loss in heat value occurred during the first 10 days. After this, the rate of loss diminished, although the loss continued indefinitely. The total loss in the open was substantially the same as in covered bins, ranging from 1 to 3% after exposure for 1 year. Fine coal suffers a greater loss in heat value than do the larger sizes. The loss of volatile matter is negligible in its effect on heat value, as some, after being exposed to air for 1 year, West Virginia slack lost less than 1% in heat value. Run-of-mine only 0.5%, Pittsburgh run-of-mine 0.4%, and Wyoming subbituminous about 3.5%. This last coal deteriorated 5.3% in heat value after an exposure to air for 1 to 2 and 3 quarter years. Coal in transit will lose in heat value because of oxidization of its new surface after mining. The loss increases with the hydrogen content ranging from 0.1% for semi-bituminous to 1.3% for the subbituminous and lignite. Spontaneous combustion of coal. In the storage of coal, spontaneous combustion must be provided against anthracite. In the storage of coal, spontaneous combustion must be provided against. Anthracite coal is not subject to spontaneous combustion and can be safely stored in any quantity. Soft coal may ignite and disintegrate unless stored under water. Spontaneous combustion of coal is due to slow oxidization in an air supply sufficient to support the oxidization, but insufficient to carry away all the heat formed. The friability of the coal, or its tendency to break up into fine particles and dust, as well as its chemical nature are the majority or the major causes of spontaneous combustion. Dust and small sizes of coal are dangerous in a coal pile containing larger sized coal because the resultant openings permit the flow of a moderate amount of air to the interior. The amount of volatile matter in the coal does not of itself increase the liability to spontaneous heating, and there is no assurance in safety in the storage of low volatile or smokeless coals. Alright. And the next one we'll be doing is oil. Fuel oil consists practically of petroleum or of its residue after the more volatile oils have been removed. The petroleum or crude oil is a viscous mineral oil varying in color from light brown through shades of green to black. Crude oil is a mixture of hydrocarbons that often contain a small percentage of sulfur, oxygen, and nitrogen. Gasoline, benzene, kerosene, and other oils commanding higher prices can be distilled off, and the residue remaining from the 12 to 25 degrees bomb is available as fuel for boilers. Fuel in the United States is purchased by volume and not by weight. Table. Yeah, there's another table that we can't really show, but there's a table, and then it lists the oil, the gravity weight, and calorific value of fuel oil. So there's that. Table IV shows that a gallon of reduced crude oil has a higher calorific value than a gallon of lighter crude. This fact should be remembered by users of oil fuel because in buying fuel, calorific value is sought. Oils are classified by their flash point, the temperature at which they give off inflammable vapors. Viscosity, the tendency of the oil particles to hold together, thus retarding the flow. Moisture in the form of an emulsion in the heavier oils. Sulfur, which produces obnoxious gases and has a corroding effect if condensed on boiler tubes. Specific gravity and heat value. These properties for fuel oils from different localities are given in Table 5. The heat value of fuel oil can be determined accurately by calorimeter test. An approximate method proposed by J.N. LeConte gives the value free from moisture as BTU per pound 17,680 plus 60 times degrees Baum, or according to Sherman and Koff, BTU pound 18,650 plus 40 degree Baum 10. Table IV, it shows results calculated by the latter formula over a considerable range. From an ultimate analysis, the calorific value of the oil can be determined by Dulong formula, which is shown below. 1 pound of fuel oil will average from 17,000 to 20,000 BTU, assuming an average of 18,500. The equivalent evaporation and at 212 degrees Fahrenheit will vary from 14.3 pounds of water with a boiler efficiency of 75% to 7.6 pounds of water with a boiler efficiency of 40%. The fuel loses when burning oil are not as great as when burning coal, and it is safe to assume that, taking everything into consideration, 1 pound of oil possesses as much heating value as 1 3/4 to 2 pounds of average coal. Advantages of oil fuel. For locomotive work, oil fuel has the following advantages: saving in cost of handling. This is due both to the smaller weight of fuel required, consequent on its higher calorific value per pound, and to the lesser cost of handling from production field to point of use on account of its fluidity. Less manual labor in firing locomotive, no ash nor clinker and subsequent ash disposal problem. Adjustment of fuel to load can be quickly made by a valve operation only. Cleanliness in passenger and terminal service. Increased locomotive availability resulting from a shorter time required for servicing and a longer service period between servicings. Higher operative efficiency due to more complete combustion at all loads and more effective heating surface. Weathering of coal with a loss range of 2 to 10% eliminated. Elimination of fire risk from sparks. Rapidity in firing up, especially when hot water is not used to fill boilers. approximately 40 minutes with oil. Economy in cleaning engine due to absence of cinders and ash. There's another table in the next page. Economy in cleaning ballast, which does not become clogged with cinders that interfere with drainage. Higher boiler efficiency due to higher superheat as oil flame does not give up as much heat in firebox by radiation. Disadvantages of oil fuel. Reduced life of firebox sheets, tubes, and flues. This is due to both more intense heat and the abrasive effect of repeated sandings, which is necessary to keep the tubes clean and is harder on the tubes than softer cinder compositions. The cost of fuel oil at different markets. Reciprocity with mines which give roads much tonnage to handle. Uncertainty of future oil supply and price. Part of the steam evaporated by the boiler must be used to atomize the oil. Approximately 4%. Steam sometimes required for heating oil so that it will be flow to burner. Burning oil in locomotives. The burning of oil as well as coal in locomotive is prevented from reaching the high efficiencies of stationary practice by the characteristics of the locomotive furnace and boiler. The locomotive firebox has a much smaller ratio of furnace volume to power output and much less exposed refractory surface from which heat is radiated back to the combustion gases. Furthermore, the gas travel rates in locomotive boilers are high, and the time limits for all combustion processes are brief as compared to with stationary boilers. Burner. The oil burner used on locomotives is of the external mixing steam jet type, which although not as efficient as mechanical and pressure types, is better suited to railroad work on account of its simplicity and ruggedness. The function of the burner is to expose the fuel to the heat of the furnace in such a form that it presents the largest possible surface to the impact of the atoms of oxygen in the combustion air. Oil in bulk has little exposed surface, but when broken into fine spray or drops, the total surface is a graduate of that all of the drops. The steam jet performs this work of atomization, although the steam takes up useful space in the restricted firebox and absorbs useful heat, thus reducing overall efficiency. The practical use, the, the, the usual practice is to locate the burner toward the front of the firebox, pointing backward. It is desirable to have as long a flameway as possible, but this is limited by some practical considerations, i.e., it is necessary to be sure that the flame impingement is all against the flash wall and does not strike the firebox door seat, which will cause bulging between stay bolts. Also, lengthening the flameway is accomplished only at the expense of more steam for atomization, or else the flame will fall short of the flash wall and not completely fill the firebox, thus not making use of all available heating surface. Firebox design. Firebox construction for oil burning varies little from coal. It is highly desirable that for oil firebox rivets be countersunk flash on the fire side and that stay bolts have no unnecessary amount of projecting head. Crown stays for oil burning locomotives are made without the usual head and instead are fitted tight with tapered threads. If coal burning boxes are converted to oil without these changes, the rivet heads should be protected with fire brick as far as possible. The general arrangement of all oil burning locomotive furnaces is the same, consisting of the usual fire pan fastened to the lower portion of the firebox and mud ring. It provides a longitudinal channel through which the oil is sprayed from the front toward the rear of the furnace. The flame then reversing its direction and returning towards the flue sheet, although the central and side areas of the furnace. The fire pan serves the purpose of closing the bottom of the firebox, supporting the necessary refractory lining and providing the necessary openings for air supply. The refractory lining not only protects the fire pan in certain firebox areas, but it but it absorbs and radiates heat back to the vaporized oil to aid in combustion. All fire pans and supporting joints should be of airtight construction to prevent leakage of air, which can cause loosened brickwork and disturbance in combustion processes. Due to the necessity for securing the benefit of all possible furnace volume, fire pans should be supported as low as possible and brick lines kept low in order to expose all possible firebox heating surface. The location, distribution, and proportioning of draft admission openings varies widely depending on local opinion. They must be worked out for each class of power. The usual basis for estimating draft emissions areas is to provide total areas of 30% of the open flue area with 5% of the open flue area around the burner. The remainder is distributed well over the rear third of the furnace. If the air supply is admitted toward the front of the fire pan, it short circuits to the flues and does not assist in the combustion. Even at the rear of the furnace, draft openings should not be close to the side seats, as the air tends to follow the cooler zone next to the seats and fails to mix with the flame. Large openings are detrimental in that they do not produce the turbulence obtained with smaller openings. Air should be admitted through jet-like openings since the velocity of intake is as important as the volume admitted. The design shown in Figure 1 is used by one railroad to fulfill these requirements. The air supply adjusts itself to a large extent with the changes in draft pressure, providing the openings are correctly proportioned and distributed without manual or automatic control. Refractory pan linings. In burning oil in a locomotive, the fire pan lower parts of the furnace sheets and tubes must be protected from the direct action of the flame by fire brick. Maximum temperatures in the furnace of an oil-burning locomotive are in the neighborhood of 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit. This temperature is not extreme, but there are sudden and relatively frequent temperature changes which tend to break down or spall the surface structure of the refractory brick. The brick, therefore, should be of good grade, able to withstand rough handling, and be laid up with minimum thickness of joints and suitable fireplay. Refractories in a locomotive are subject to considerable variations, and fire pans should be well constructed and maintained. Fuel oil flows to the burner. Fuel heating. Fuel flows to the oil burner by gravity and must therefore be thin enough to run, as fuel oils have become heavier due to refining processes. It is necessary to heat the fuel in the locomotive tanks to ensure a steady flow to the burner. Heating methods are of two types. First, the direct system, where steam is introduced directly into the oil in the tank, and second, where indirect heating is obtained by means of submerged steam coils. Where heavy oils are used, the indirect heater is better, as efficient burning temperatures cannot be obtained with the well oil emulsions resulting from direct heating. Most fuel oils are purchased to specifications requiring a low water content, and it is therefore poor practice to add water in the locomotive tank. In addition, to increase viscosity due to water emulsion and higher burning temperatures, the water in suspension in the oil vaporizes and causes a foamy condition, which makes for difficult control of heating. The indirect heater shown in Figure 2 is in common use. It is quite satisfactory, but is difficult to clean, where sludge accumulates on its surface and tends to heat the entire contents of the tank higher than necessary. The latter results in radiation loss and the rising of the hottest oil to the top of the tank. A steam jacket is generally placed around a portion of the oil line to the burner, but this can only be considered as an auxiliary. Fuel oil should not be heated above 180 degrees Fahrenheit, as above this, sludge will separate out and deposit on the heater. Sending of the flues. It is universal practice on oil-burning locomotives to inject sand into the furnace at frequent intervals for the purpose of cleaning soot from the flues. It is sifted through an opening in the firebox by means of a funnel or scoop, where it is picketed up by the draft and drawn through the fleas, scouring them as it passes. Good, clean sand with ability to withstand fusion at temperatures below 2700 degrees should be used. Typical oil burning installation. A typical installation of oil burning equipment for locomotives is shown in Figure 2. Comparison of coal and oil as a locomotive fuel. The relative cost of coal and oil vary greatly in different parts of the world. To the cost at the mine or well should be added the change for freight handling, storage, etc. as the price of the fuel on the tender is the cost desired. This cost plus a consideration of the availability and extent of the supply enter into the choice based on the relative heat values. 1 pound of oil is approximately equivalent to 1/2 pounds of coal. This ratio of coal to oil should be obtained to agree with the local conditions. The Santa Fe uses the following formulas in consideration the use of oil. The equivalent price of oil per barrel, and they show a formula which I'll try to put up there later, but right now we'll leave it at that. Equivalent to price of coal per ton. Again, they show a formula. I will find some other time to bring that up. Where a weight of, where a, it shows a table of equations that you can do, or that the Santa Fe has done to prove what they are, their reasoning behind using oil rather than coal. Or when they use oil, this is why they use it, and why they use coal when they use that. So, there you have. Tests from Santa Fe showed that the evaporative efficiency of oil is about 25% more than hand-fired coal and about 40% more than for stoker-fired coal, which makes the above factor X 1.25 for hand firing and 1.40 for stoker firing. Probably the higher efficiency of the hand firing can be traced to fireman psychology, for when manual effort is required to introduce coal into the firebox, greater care is often exerted to see that no excessive amount is used. More recent types of stokers may make this ratio more nearly equal. The use of a brick arc in oil-burning locomotives is a matter of opinion. One road having a large number of such locomotives made extensive tests both with and without brick arcs, and arrived at the conclusion that any slight advantages resulting from the use of a brick arc with either front or back end burner arrangement were more than offset by disadvantages, and therefore the brick arc should not be justified for oil burning locomotives. In burning oil, it usually follows that the boiler is working at its maximum evaporative capacity all the time and has to take advantage of and to take advantage of this, either the speed of the train or the tonnage hauled should be increased. Experience in the United States indicates that the life of a firebox instead of fluids is slightly less for an oil burning locomotive than one burning coal. The advent and perfection of welding practice, fireboxes are seldom renewed completely, but new prices are welded into weakened portions, thus making it difficult to secure information with regard to firebox life. The more intense heat in an oil burning firebox and the ability to rapidly produce a greater change in temperature, resulting in heavy expansion and contraction strains, tends to make maintenance costs higher than for coal burners. This is especially true in the top knuckle of the flue sheets, unless there are combustion chambers. Flue life in oil burning locomotives is also shortened by the more intense heat due to the cracking of the welded beads at the flue sheet. The abrasive effect of repeated standing is also harder on the flues and beads than softer cinders of a coal burner. Fuel equivalents. It requires about 15 gallons of fuel oil per mile for freight trains up to 300,000 tons and 10 gallons for passenger trains up to 400 tons. From 150 to 170 gallons of oil are considered equivalent to 1 ton of coal. This conversion factor differs due to the various kinds of oil used and the equipment and experience of each road. The Bureau of Railway Economics published in 1942 a statement showing the unit performance in which of the several kinds of fuel and power used in road freight service, road passenger service, and yard switching service for individual Class 1 railroads of the United States. A summary of these for all Class 1 railroads for 1941 follows, and again, I'll have to find some way to put that on there. And it is and it lists like a table of things. And that ends chapter 2. I will do chapter 3 at another time. Thank you guys all for watching and listening. Thank you guys and good night.